Premise 1. New Primitivism. If one were to imagine the oldest place in the world placed before us, it may be the future that has yet to come. Places with primitive qualities can become manifest representations of the archetype of eternal space. The mythical primitive hut can represent an ideal place that has never existed. It can also represent a future destination that has yet to exist. Primitive and futurity happen in parallel, creating mutual interpretations. The future primitive will either overwhelm scarcity with abundance or turn all excess into cyclical energy. Premise 2. The new American flag of usage. The average American consumes and wastes more than ever before. The average American eats 1,966 pounds of food a year, consumes 305 million BTUs of energy a year, uses 150 gallons of water a day, and uses 321 pounds of plastic a year. The average American requires 3.25 acres of land for food a year. The future home can either reject such wasteful attitudes or it can fully embrace its excessive tendencies. This project is set in the countryside. America is divided politically, socially, and spatially by who occupies the city and who occupies the countryside. Rural architecture is often a vernacular inspiration or a dream project for a rich client, but hardly ever is it the focus of today's society. Two parallel futures of technological dependency versus self-sufficiency. In the search for purity of architectural form, the house becomes excessively dependent on the environmental control tools at hand. The house becomes an engineer's dilemma solved through a plethora of systems and tools. The house then becomes designed like a product. If the home is not a house, and the home is also not a systems, a home is the effects of the house. It becomes a battle between usability versus minimalist desire for purity. In the search for a well-tempered environment, excessive power is used rather than sensible efficiency. It takes a stance of why not to provoke the architect's central principles. While Banham asks, when we have so many systems running our houses, why not use the systems to hold it up? The new primitive asks, why have a house to hold up at all? Structure is unnecessary, envelope is unnecessary, with the return to understanding home as a zone around a campfire. Home is a temporal monument to living. The opposing second new primitive hut is cyclical and self-sufficient. It supports all the needs of a human through the formal tectonic rather than machine. While the house takes care of its inhabitants, so does the inhabitant take care of its home. The house becomes activated through human use. This new primitive reconnects the conscious human to the earth. The house is built from local materials, making architecture, living, and nature inseparable. If a house is not a home, and systems are not a home, then the connection to place and earth is home. This new primitive proposes that home is split into two sides, one for summer living and one for winter living. The home is an adaptive cycle of inhabiting the earth. Effects on space. The new primitive uses the latest electromagnetic technology not only to lift the roof but also to power it. This means the moment you enter the home, all your devices will begin charging. A wind turbine powers a ring of air curtains around the home, separating interior environment and exterior environment. A series of humidity condensers allow for fog machines to create fog curtain around your home to create privacy. The radiant floor has the ability to heat or cool based on body temperature measurements. The new primitive hut is up to 5 times more powerful than your standard home. The battery life is up to 10 years of regular use, powered by thorium reactors. The new primitive hut is a product of the effects of a house. The primitive hut refuses the use of electrical equipment. During the summer, the occupants live on the shaded side of the house. The floor is lifted off the ground and porous, allowing cool air to flow from an induced current from below. Meanwhile, plants are grown on the opposite side of the house. During the winter, the occupants live on the sunny southern side of the house, trapping the warmth with its thermal mass. The floor is heated from the use of the kitchen as well as methane burner from the biodigester. In the winter, the north side is used for drying meats and fruits, as well as for fermentation. Rainwater is collected and filtered through vegetation, then used for consumption and ablution. The used water is then once again returned to plant life for filtration and fertilization. In total, the house changes as the weather changes. Therefore, the occupant must move to the comfortable microclimates of the home. The implications of aggregate. The new primitive hut rejects context, seeing countryside as tabula rasa. It also rejects environment and climate change, preferring to make its own climates. The excessive power used to make people comfortable results in overwhelming turbulent forces as our new environment. Air traffic becomes dictated by invisible pathways that are safe between the houses. Pockets and bubbles of tempered space emerge in clusters of homes. New balances are found in our everyday life as we have worked so hard for a well-tempered environment that our exterior environment evolves into Anthropocenic chaos. The other primitive hut attempts to adapt to the given environment, each home morphologically altering to fit their specific given location. In order to live in such a way, the human must give up many of the pleasures they enjoyed. They must move as the seasons move. They must also give up the idea of urbanity, as that requires a transfer of resources from elsewhere and shifts the balance. In order for humans to be fully in touch with nature, they must return to primitivism. Every human will sow the land they sleep on. Every human will bend to fulfill their obligation towards Mother Earth rather than remain in their own personal indifference.